What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started. Story 1. I witnessed my fiancé's tragic end last year. I moved states afterwards and started a new life. My coworkers, clients, and new friends call me the sunshine of whatever room I walk into, but I'm completely dead inside. Even though I choose to fake it, I resent them for not seeing how fudge up I am. Story 2. I have a secret fantasy life populated with imaginary friends. It started in grade school, and I have continued all my life. I am in my 50s now and still prefer to be alone in my imaginary world instead of being with family or friends. I can't even tell my psychiatrist because I am afraid he will lock me up or give me substances to make it all stop. If you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee. Link is in the description. I'll show the most interesting messages in my videos. Story 3. Last Christmas, I leaned my sister, and I don't have the same father, and are technically half-sisters. My sister's biological father tried to start a relationship with my mom that resulted in a pregnancy and ultimately didn't work out. That biological father is dead now, but I didn't probe any further about his identity or how he died in case it was something traumatic for my mom to remember. So she raised my sister as a single mother at my grandma's house in the 80s. Then she met my father, and they started dating, and it worked out because they got married in the 90s, moved into a new house, and a short time after that I was born. She told me never call my sister my half-sister and just pretend all of this doesn't matter because she's my sister, and I'm keeping it that way. And if anyone asks about the 10-year age gap, I just tell them it's a long story. Story 4. I'm the spitting image of my grandpa on my dad's side. Both my parents are almost a foot shorter than me, but I'm almost the same height as him. When my mother got sick when I was a kid, my grandpa went to visit her daily for extended periods of time in the hospital. In his final months, she did the same. After he passed, we found out he kept a whole other family on the side in secret too. Looking back at my dad's military deployment history, it would also be dicey if she could have gotten pregnant by him around the appropriate time. Based on a collection of various hunches, I'm fairly convinced I'm the product of an affair between my mother and supposed grandfather. More disturbingly, this would probably be one of the most lighthearted revelations about my family. Story 5. When I was 16, I conspired with a heroin addict I met online to help me off myself with heroin and dump my body in a dumpster in exchange for my valuables. I lived in a small town and he was in a bigger city where my school had an upcoming trip. We planned for me to slip away during the trip and meet up with him to do the deed. He chickened out last minute and ghosted me. Story 6. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, I was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of your street. She was in her yard at the time, tending to these really fancy-looking rose bushes she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even really come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening, but she sprayed the fudge out of him with some kind of insecticide or other chemicals she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them though, because I decided that night to sneak downstairs, out the half-bath window, and down the street to her yard, where I cut down every goddamn rose bush I could get my hands on. Answer. I'm convinced a neighbor poisoned our family dog. We got her when I was in 2nd grade. The poisoning happened when I was in college. They left notes on our door threatening to hurt the dog if she shoot in their yard again, but our dog never went to their yard. Anyhow, she fell very ill, very fast. She was in intense pain from her insides. Shed let out screams in pain. I don't know if you have ever heard a dog scream. That's the best I can describe it. It wasn't a cry, howl, or bark. It was a haunting scream. She couldn't get comfortable. I'd hold her to try to comfort her, and she'd be okay for a few seconds, and then another scream. We had to put her down. It was the only humane thing to do. I was devastated. It was like losing a sibling. It still hurts, and this was almost 20 years ago. Not long after that, our area had a natural disaster. The whole city was flooded. We moved back in pretty quickly because my dad was a carpenter, but most people took longer to return, including that neighbor. Let's just say, every snake, reptile, rat, or any other nasty creature that my crazy dad came across, and there was a lot due to the disaster, was brought straight to their yard and inside their house. For months, I smiled to imagine the house of horrors that they returned to. It still wasn't enough, though. In another world, I'd love to burn them inside their house, but alas, civilization. Story 7. I make up lies about what I do on the weekend. Usually I don't do much and I'm very content with that. Others are always asking me what I'm doing and I never had anything to tell them. I make up lies to get out of phone calls or plans, saying I'm out of town or with friends. I love just being left alone. Story 8. When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was 101s. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a coworker who was always trying to get me fired was telling someone she got about 100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. Answer. Not super dark, but mine is also stealing from my employer. It was a seasonal job and they told people if you came back next season, you'd get a raise. Next season, I got a 50-cent per hour raise and mentioned it to a couple other people who had also returned, who it turned out didn't get a raise. They went and complained to the boss, who then took my raise back and gave them each 25-cent raises. I argued with the boss for a bit, but eventually just decided I'd steal a few bucks per shift to make up the difference. Story 9. I know where my missing friend is. She ran away 2 years ago, and her family is still looking for her. She texted me after the first year. She's in Los Angeles. Story 10. I've struggled with disordered eating for at least a decade. It ebbs and flows. I know it's unhealthy, but the toxic part of me loves the feeling of being empty. Several years ago, it was really bad. I was at my lowest weight ever. I had brain fog, difficulty breathing. When I started eating again, my stomach would get really bloated, even if I only ate a small amount. I gained weight in the last year or so, and my depression and anxiety got really bad for a while. My family thinks I don't want to spend time with them. However, I just wanted to stay home because trying on my clothes and the idea of being in public made me want to eliminate myself. It was easier on me mentally to just stay home. I can feel myself slipping back into my old disordered eating habits, unfortunately. Answer. Hi, I'm an eating disorder therapist, and I dislike to break it to you if you don't deep down know this already, but you have an eating disorder, and there are specialized therapists like myself that can help you through this. The bloating is caused by refeeding, and it can be dangerous if not monitored medical care and team, since basically you are starving yourself before your body is struggling to get the right bacteria to digest your food again. Plus, your body is very taxed by lack of proper nutrition, and it's going to be hard mentally as well as physically. Eating disorders are not something to be taken lightly, and it's so important to get mental health help because it's a mind thing that then affects your body. Many people die from eating disorders or shorten their lifespan. Please get professional help from an eating disorder team. And everyone, stop minimizing it and calling it disordered eating. Story 11. 2 years ago, one of my best friends and I went halfsies on a fudge ton of Xanax. On June 8th, we both took Xanax from the batch we split. I woke up. He didn't. No one knows I had anything to do with the substances that eliminate him, and I don't know if I can ever bring myself to tell someone. Answer. I feel you, man. Something similar happened to me. A newer friend of mine who was recovering began pestering me time and time again about finding him Xanax, after I told him I sometimes get them and take them for anxiety. He got so pushy that finally I caved and hooked him up with a plug I had known. Within a month, he was dead due to a fentanyl overdose. This was 3 years ago, and the guilt never truly went away. I opened up to my girlfriend about this, and she has assured me it wasn't my fault and such, but I can't help but feel like I should have been more firm. I feel like my enabling led to his passing. He was 26 years old and a month away from finishing his apprenticeship. Story 12. A man broke into my home about 10 years ago. Well, kind of. He knocked. I answered the door, and he pushed his way in. He spoke about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and tried to extort me for protection, or he and his brothers of doom would come and eliminate me. He was huge. Ex-Navy, if he was to be believed. Tipsy as hell, hand covered in blood holding a broken bottle. I was terrified. I told him to leave. He wouldn't. He was getting aggressive. I told him I would splatter his brains against the wall if he didn't. I didn't have a gun at the time. Anyway, he didn't leave. I went into my kitchen and grabbed a knife and sliced at him a few times. He staggered away, seemingly okay. I assumed he was all right, just wounded a bit. I never saw him again. A neighbor told me days later a man was found dead, some wounds on his arms. I can only guess he bled out, but I never got questioned, somehow. There was a lot of blood in and around my house. I lived in a pretty seedy area, so I guess the cops just didn't care. The guy was apparently a repeat criminal. I eliminate a man, at least indirectly, and have never told anybody. Answer: you eliminate a man that illegally entered your home without authorization, with a bloody hand around a weapon that was completely off his gourd, and ultimatumed you with a consequence that he and his brothers would eliminate you unless you cooperated. He basically put you into a hostage situation, and you were 100 within your right to defend yourself, which you did. I truly hope you've carried no guilt with you all this time. Story 13. When I was younger, I lived with my grandmother. Not long after I turned 18, her health started to decline. That sort of decline that you know means she won't be around for much longer. Over the months, I did my best to take care of her, getting her to the hospital when she needed, and other things. We had someone coming every day to help her with things I couldn't. Well, what my family doesn't know is that the night she passed, I was in the living room watching TV. My dog was in bed with my grandma, and I started to hear him whimper and bark. I knew what was happening. I knew that if I acted, I could potentially save her. I didn't want to watch her suffer anymore, though. To watch her live with so much pain and unable to do anything for herself anymore. So I made the choice to let her pass before making any calls. She lived 92 years, and the only regret I have is that she passed a month after I would have graduated if I hadn't been kicked out of school. She had been in good enough health at the time to go to my graduation. I still kick myself for how stupid I was back then. Edit: I didn't expect this much support. Thanks. I'm not too torn up about letting her pass. I knew it was for the best. She was such a great person. She didn't deserve to live in such a poor manner any longer than she already had. I don't regret what I did. I regret what I had done that got me kicked out of school, that I didn't try and make it to graduation for her. I think I've lived my life so far in a way that she'd be proud of. Not graduating before she passed is the only regret I really have in this life so far. And I'm 35 now, so I think I'm doing pretty good. Answer: I feel you. When my dad died of cancer, after a painful final night during which my brother and I took turns watching over him, we both waited to call 911. We wanted to make sure he was dead. We used that thing you put on your finger that measures oxygen in your blood to be safe. My brother and I ended up waiting a few hours, getting our bearings, crying, talking. It was surreal. When I tried to pull off the device, my dad had already gone into rigor mortis and his finger wouldn't budge. That's one of my clearest memories of that day. Story 14. It's heartbreaking hearing of so many people who were intimacy assaulted as children and feeling like they have no option but to hide it, lest it cause irreparable rifts between friends, family, and other close ones. Just want to let all of you affected by this know that if you did go public, you're not the cause of any conflict, no matter how anybody else paints it. You were the victim of one of the most heinous things one human being can do to another. The source of conflict is all down to whoever perpetrated the violence against you, and the shame should not be yours to live with. Story 15. It's not my secret, but my mom's, and I'm not hiding it from everyone, just the person who it potentially matters to the most. When my mom was in high school in the 60s, she had a long-term serious boyfriend named Jimmy. They were each other's first. They were together for years and were planning on getting married. He went away to college. My mom stayed behind, but they were still together. You know what happened next? He cheated and got the new girl pregnant. He comes home to break the news to my mom. Abortion was not legal at the time. He basically says that he wants to be with my mom, but he has no choice but to marry this other girl. My mom was devastated. Here's the secret. My mom was also pregnant by him, but hadn't told him yet. She decided she wasn't ever going to tell him. Jimmy went on to marry the other girl and never knew my mom was also pregnant. She told me that she later threw herself down a flight of stairs to cause a miscarriage. My mom actually reconnected with Jimmy during the early days of Facebook. She didn't have an account, but asked me to look for him using mine. He was still married to the same person. My mom was married to my dad. They wrote to each other for a while, using my account. Ugh. Signed their messages saying, "I love you." My mom passed away a number of years ago. I think about this knowledge I have that Jimmy doesn't. This major life event thing that he doesn't even know happened. That could have changed the trajectory of many lives. I'm certainly not going to tell him. It's not my secret to tell. Edit. There seems to be a part of the story that I didn't make clear enough. My mom had a miscarriage and never had that baby. It was an intentional miscarriage by throwing herself down the stairs. Jimmy is not my father. Story 16. I had an IBS attack once and had to violently shoot in a church grounds behind someone's car. Used underwear to wipe too and left that there. Not proud. Answer. IBS attack once I had one in high school. I managed to clean any trace and nobody found out. Nobody knew except my father, who was unusually helpful, understood me and supported me, and never talked about it again. It was my darkest secret, half of my life. But then I understood that it's natural and that I've took the good decisions and I have nothing to be shamefully about. And also, I have way darker secrets now. Story 17. My wife, her mom, and I bought a house about 2 years ago. Just from talking to the neighbors, I'd gathered that the family who lived here before had a daughter that was mixed up with the wrong people. We had some random person knock on our door at night saying he needed gas. We are down a long driveway. No way you'd randomly walk up to our house to ask for help. I think he was looking for the people who used to live here. And then another time Sunday morning, making pancakes for the family, I get a knock on the door, and it's 4 sheriff's officers saying they received a 911 call that hung up, and it was from the house. We don't have a landline, and I assured them my wife and 2-year-old did not make any call. They mentioned a name of the previous occupants, and I let them know we moved in earlier this year, and they seemed okay with that and left. Anyways, I was doing some yard work and struck up conversation with the neighbor. He saw the police cars and asked what was up. I told him the situation and he just goes, "Oh yeah, that family was messed up. The cops were probably being cautious." Considering the shooting, what shooting, I ask. He kind of looks at me with a sad, worried face. "The shooting in your house? Wait, what?" I say, truly baffled. He then proceeds to tell me that about 2 years before the father in the house confronted his daughter and boyfriend he didn't like and shot and eliminate the boyfriend in the house. Our state doesn't have a disclosure law, so we never knew. I was blown away. All the strange happenings kind of made sense now. He said the friends of the victim had kind of terrorized them for a while because the police were taking so long to press charges. Slash tears, midnight fireworks, odd shoot that the neighbors dislike. I was shocked but just said, "That's crazy. But hey, do me a favor and never tell my wife or MIL about that. They are a little spooked by things like that." So the TRDL is that we live in a takedown house and I'm the only one of my family that knows. Story 18. My PTSD isn't getting better. I have nightly nightmares of the industrial accident I was in. I see my coworker ripping his burnt face off every night. I no longer scream in my sleep because of it. Am no longer terrified as much by it. Even though I know it's not my fault, I feel an enormous amount of guilt for what happened to him. Sometimes when I'm not sleeping, I'll hear the scream he made in the distance, and it'll make my blood feel like ice. Therapy hasn't done much. Answer. I want to echo EMDR. I'm a first responder and have seen many coworkers deal with the trauma and horror of the job. Everyone I know who has tried EMDR has told me it's life-changing. If it isn't a good fit, please don't stop trying to find something that is. Please continue to advocate for yourself and know that you are experiencing a normal reaction to an abnormal event. Most people will never experience something that comes close to what you experienced, which can feel horribly isolating. Sending hugs to you. Story 19. I found my adoption papers a few years ago when I was looking for a copy of my birth certificate. I know my birth mom, I just never had a relationship with her. My maternal grandmother took me in 2002. I never knew she adopted me. I just knew that one day I ended up living with her. After telling her one day, "I don't want to go back home, LOL." I also found the letter that my mom wrote as to why she was giving me up. That one really hurt. Edit. Didn't expect this many upvotes, honestly. LOL, thank you everyone for your kind words. My grandma is really the sweetest person ever. I'm forever grateful for her, but I just wanted to say now that I'm older, I understand why my mom did what she did. And believe it or not, we actually have a cordial relationship now. LOL. Edit 2. This brought back some unsettling feelings. I thought I was over. LOL. But I want to thank you guys for your own stories and kind words. They made me realize that I'm not the only one who had a rough life growing up, and I shouldn't let that stop me from healing and being the best that I can be. This has been one of the worst years of my life. I've been taking loss after loss, and I honestly felt like unaliving myself. I kept coming back to read the comments, and I see how strong everyone is, and didn't let what they went through stop them from doing better. So I just wanted to say that I've made an appointment to start therapy again, and I'm going to be completely honest about how I truly feel and open up more. Thank you so much, Reddit. Also, I haven't been the best granddaughter lately, so I'm spending more quality time with my grandma and helping her out with whatever she needs. Story 20. My grandma was in a car accident and broke her ankle, so she stayed at my house and we took care of her while she recovered. I was entering puberty at the time and discovered that you could order adult content on cable and was like a madman ordering adult content. The bill that month came out to $500. My mom thought it was my grandma because her novellas were on like channel 50 to 60 and the adult content was 500 to 600 limfao. I've literally never told anyone to this day. ETA. I am Latina, and intimacy adult content for women is still pretty taboo in my culture, so that's why I'm so scared to tell anyone. Even if my mom and I are pretty open with each other, I'm still embarrassed. However, my grandma passed away in 2019, and I felt compelled to tell my secret. But my mom sees that story as a funny memory she has of my grandma that she likes to look back on and laugh about, so IDK if I should, lol. Story 21. Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancé passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day and I just denied her call, went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the darn phone. Answer. The last thing your grandma wanted you to feel from that moment is guilt. All she wanted was to show you she thought about you, loves you, and extend a small morsel of goodness on what would most likely be a hard upcoming day for you. Those feelings are just as real as the words we hear. You didn't need to answer to make your mutual love for each other any more true. Story 22. In high school, I was a super good kid. Straight A student who loved homework, keeping out of trouble, and who was quiet as hell during class. So anyway, there was this guy who was also in AP classes with me, but he was super loud and obnoxious, but would pull stunts in such a way that he would have some margin of plausible deniability. Though we never spoke, I'm not sure he even knew I existed. He rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe it was from the one cold day when this other girl in our class had her nipples poking through her shirt because she forgot a sweater, and he kept saying to her, "Damn, it's cold, huh?" Maybe it was from when he would pretend to be friends with kid who was definitely spectrum and desperate to be friends with him to do the bully's homework for him and then bully him the next day. IDK. So at random, sometimes once a week or a month or once every couple of months, I would whistle. It's this high-pitched whistle that sounds like a tea kettle that I can do while barely moving my mouth. Back then, no one knew I could do it except for my family. The super obnoxious kid always got in trouble. I was never once suspected. Answer. That's hilarious. I have a similar ability. I can make a chirping noise like a baby chick. When I was a kid, I was in church ostensibly singing in the choir, but actually chirping to the music. My family downstairs knew it was me, and we're all doing that trying not to laugh, but I'm almost ready to explode thing. Decades later, it's still a topic that comes up at family gatherings. Story 23. I have never been happy truly, and 99 of times I just adjust with people forcibly and make them happy, mostly without thinking mine. Story 24. My brother and I did a 23andMe. We discovered we have a half-sibling, same father, who is older than us. I messaged them, but no reply. Since the half-sibling is older, it was during my father's military career, which was short-lived because he got a dishonorable discharge that he hides from his family still. Answer. Kind of similar story here. 6 years ago when I was 24, my mom randomly told me I have an older half-sister that my dad completely abandoned. She only knew of my sister's mother's name, so I searched for her on Facebook and found my sister. She is the spitting image of our father, so I knew immediately it was true. Both my sister and her mom confirmed it, and my sister and I immediately started bonding. We are incredibly close now. My father's side was overjoyed when I found her, as they knew of her but never what happened to her. We've all welcomed her with open arms, except my father. When she reached out to him, he essentially told her to fudge off, then screamed at me that she wasn't my sister, and continues to call me the meanie that ruined the family. Her and I did 23andMe, and we matched as half-siblings, so now there's no denying it. I lost a shoot father but gained an incredible sibling that means 10x more to me. Story 25. My grandpa was stationed in Okinawa, Japan during the Korean War while in the Marines. He hooked up with a woman there and she got pregnant. So, I have a Japanese aunt and a few cousins in Japan whom I've never met before. Answer. Maybe same here. My dad was stationed in Okinawa right as the Vietnam War was starting. I've seen pictures of him with his Japanese girlfriend and have kind of always wondered if I I have 3 siblings. Could potentially have some family in Japan now. I honestly wouldn't be surprised, and at least would be able to communicate, as both me and my sister speak Japanese and even lived in Japan in our 20s. Story 26. My wife and I aren't officially married. No one knows. We had a ceremony and everything, reception, the whole 9 yards. We just never did the official paperwork. We realized that since she's going back to school, it benefits her financially to go through financial aid as single rather than married. When she finishes up, we're going to head over to town hall and finish the last step. Answer. Lots of people do this, at least where I live, big college town. Financial aid is a big factor for people, and it definitely is better to be single. Doesn't actually mean you aren't married, just that you found a way to show you love each other and that you are able to compromise with finances. Congratulations, and hope you a long and happy relationship. Story 27. I was married for 13 years to my best friend. We had what I thought was a great, easy marriage. One day our 5-year-old daughter told me he was having her perform oral intimacy on him. I was shocked, devastated, and afraid. He was one of those fun guys everyone loves to be around. I immediately called the police and he was arrested. When they started investigating him, they found out that he had been arrested while in college for exposing himself to very young boys. He only got a slap on the wrist that time because he came from a very wealthy family. One of his uncles was governor of the state we lived in. I was so ashamed I told our friends that he had an affair and moved away. But the truth was that he was in prison for 5 years. I picked up the pieces, sent our daughter to therapy, and spent the next 15 years being a mother, paying for private school, cool trips, etc. She was my life. Then when she went to college, he reached out to her over Facebook. When I saw she was communicating with him, I was shocked, devastated, and afraid all over again. I called and told her that she was an adult, but I thought she should be careful because he's not safe. She hung up on me and has not spoken to me since. That was 4 years ago. I send her $40,000 a year still to pay for her medical school. It's all been almost unbelievable. Thank you for allowing me to share it here. Answer. People like him are able to spin things around and convince people, spin off stories. I wouldn't be surprised if he has convicted her that you made all that up or something like that. You did the right thing to protect your daughter. You did not ignore the problem like some others do. You did nothing wrong. I applaud you. I hope you find your peace. One day, maybe your daughter will realize you did the best you could. Story 28. In middle school, I made a smoking pipe out of copper pipe just for fun. I know you should not smoke out of copper as the fumes are potentially toxic. My stepdad took it from me and started using it. He smoked with it for years. I dislike him for physically abusing me, so I never said anything. It's now 30 years later, and he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and likely only has a few years to live. I hope he rots in hell. I don't know if it had any effect, but I like to think the copper pipe played a role in his sickness as karma for being a jerk. Story 29. My wife is handicapped, and I lied to her that I find it hard to clean cut up mushrooms. She has self-esteem issues because I can do things much easily than her. So I lied, and now she feels better. Story 30. I think I'm beginning to lose my mind. Lately, I've been having trouble remembering things that I've known for years. Sometimes when people talk to me, their words just don't make sense to me. When everyone else seems to get it, I've become super paranoid. I'm having an extremely hard time concentrating, and I've been finding it more and more difficult to talk to people. I'm kind of scared. Edit. I'm only 26, never had COVID. Answer. This could be anything from bipolar schizophrenia, major dissociative episodes, to a high thyroid or hormonal imbalance. Go to a doctor and be honest. Ask for a blood test and go from there. You'd be amazed what small, fixable thing could cause these symptoms. Source. Therapist edit. Did not expect this level of attention for this comment, but I'm going to leave it up. A few people think I'm giving medical advice and I want to clarify. My advice is see a doctor. If you Google these symptoms, you'll get the full range of schizophrenia, brain tumor, etc. And it's terrifying when a simple workup could find a very easy answer. That should always be the first step and what I tell all my clients. Have you had a primary physician evaluated these symptoms as well? In my personal experience, a B12 deficiency was causing some really wild issues, and it was such an easy fix. Start with the body is what I'm saying, before you panic that it's the big bads. A few people were telling this poor poster it sounds like Alzheimer's. That would be teetering close to medical advice, and probably terrifying for OP to read. I'm saying always start with the horses before the zebras. Blood work, doctor eval. Am I sleeping well? Am I eating well? Am I hydrated? Then go from there. With a DR, and mental health professionals' guidance. Story 31. Most people in my family think that my mother recently died suddenly from complications due to cancer, but she really died from the toxic effects of oxycodone, morphine, fentanyl, and methamphetamine. Seems as though she just had herself a secret passing party. Story 32. One of my closest coworkers, who is an integral part to our very large corporation, eliminated a man in his late teens and threw the body in a lake. He only got off on a technicality. I work remotely, so I don't build a lot of personal relationships with people I work with regularly. I Googled his full name. It freaked me out at first, but I've kind of gotten over it. I wonder if anyone else knows. It happened 40 years ago. He will retire soon, and then I might ask another coworker about it. I just don't want to stir the pot. Story 33. My cousin violated me when I was a kid, and to this day, I haven't told anyone about it. It's been probably around 25 years ago or so, which makes me feel like it's not worth addressing after so much time. I absolutely dislike it when his mom asked me why I didn't invite him to my wedding. I still don't know how I should have responded to keep that a secret. Story 34. The only person in my life who knows this story is my husband. When I was 8, I was desperate to be liked by the older boys on the street. I was the youngest boy, other than a baby or two, on the block, so I rarely had any boys to play with. When I was noticed by an older boy, 19, a senior in high school, I was thrilled. He, I'll call him Mike, saw me riding my bike up and down the street one day while he was outside playing basketball with a friend of his, who I will call Sean. Together, they stopped me and talked to me about school, about my bike, and other random shoot. Then, Mike invited me inside for a Coke. Since my parents didn't keep soda in the house often, this was a treat. Once inside, my can of Coke in my hand, Mike and Sean started turning the conversation to things I didn't understand. I don't remember exactly what they talked about, but I do remember a lot of questions about my body, my male body part, whether I got arousal, and if I had ever seen an older boy's male body part. This turned into them taking their pants off and urging me to do the same. I didn't want to, but Mike knew I was an insecure little kid. He turned on the manipulation. Oh well, I thought you were cool, Faustus. I guess not. I don't talk to boys who aren't cool. That kind of shoot. I did what they asked from that point on, afraid to be uncool and not have older boys to talk to anymore. That day, all they made me do was touch them. But for months afterward, until Mike went away to college, I was used by them. Most often, it was just Mike. About half the time, though, Sean was involved. He seemed less gung-ho about raping me than Mike did. Without going into details, if you can imagine something intimacy a 19-year-old could do to an 8-year-old, he did it to me. The weirdest part about it all was, though I dislike it when it was happening, I missed it when it was over. I felt special when Mike would invite me into his house. When he left for college, and when Sean completely ignored me after Mike was gone, I felt lonely and unwanted again. I never told my parents. To this day, more than 30 years after the fact, they don't know that it happened. Mike and Sean never faced any sort of repercussions for what they did to me. Though, in a small bit of justice, Mike did end up going to prison about 10 years ago for doing the same thing to another boy. There are probably more than just that boy and me, but at least he finally got caught for hurting someone. Story 35. When I was around 5 or 6, my mom and dad were fighting just about every day. Well, I was napping on the couch when my mom came in very upset, and she shook me awake. She asked me if I saw the girl my dad brought home. I've always felt terrible for this because I hadn't seen anyone but my dad that whole day. I'm pretty sure he was just playing video games like usual, but for some reason in my sleepy kid brain, I answered yes. I said she was with him in their room. I'm honestly not sure why I lied like that, but they got a divorce shortly after, and I always felt like it was my fault. Until I recently found out my little sister is actually my half-sister, but that's a whole other story. Edit. For clarification, my dad had been cheating with my mom's sister, and my mom was cheating with one of their friends to get back at him. She thought he was cheating with a different girl, but found out later it was my aunt. Honestly, their relationship was on its way out. I don't feel bad about it now since a few years ago, we found out my little sister is my half-sister from the affair my mom had. Answer. Therapists specifically advise against asking young kids questions like this because kids will seek their parents' approval to the point of lying if they think that's what the parents want to hear. Your mother was expecting you to say yes, so it wasn't that you lied out of nowhere. It was that you went along with what you thought she wanted you to say. Story 36. My adopted sister knows her birth mother died in a freak accident. She doesn't know the cause of passing was beheading. I worked with a guy that was a first responder to the accident. Story 37. I'm living with my mom right now because she's going there cancer, but to be honest, I can't wait to see her go. It sounds horrible, but I'd rather see her go than see her suffer even more. It's not like I would get anything out of her will. It's more like it sucks cause she's always in pain and seeing her like that brings me pain. Edit. Thank you everyone for your responses. I've felt so alone on this for a long time. She's still fighting a long battle, but it's just getting worse every day. I appreciate the help that everyone has offered. It really helps a lot. Thank you. Story 38. When I was around 9 years old, I used my mom's credit card to sign up my shoot alcoholic stepfather for a adult content website in hopes of starting a fight and her leaving him. FYI, she did leave after another year or so. Current stepdad is a real keeper. Edited to correct a spelling mistake. Story 39. I don't know why, but I always keep thinking that one day I will cut all contact with everyone in my life, disappear from their lives, and just keep for myself. I don't know why I think like this. I have some good friends. Answer. It's a common thought with depression, typically associated with something specific you don't feel like you have control over or can change. Edit. Because this is blowing up, I want to take the opportunity to remind people to take their mental health seriously. Talk to a therapist if you can. And if the therapist sucks, don't give up. Change therapists. Here's a longer response. Edit. As Yuso Ya Lee JP pointed out, psychiatrists can diagnose, not therapists. Start there. Edit. Therapists can diagnose but not prescribe. Story 40. Ever since my daughter took her own life, I have been hiding how much pain I'm really in. My family is beyond dysfunctional, so it would create more crap for me to deal with. Although, I did tell my mom to gargle donkey balls yesterday, and that made me feel slightly better. Story 41. I'm leaving the country on a long vacation, and everyone knows. What they don't know is, I'm not sure I'm planning on coming back. Going to try and live a new life out there and see how it goes. Answer. I feel I need a holiday, a very long holiday, as I have told you before. Probably a permanent holiday. I don't expect I shall return. In fact, I don't mean to, and I have made all arrangements. I feel all thin, sort of stretched, if you know what I mean. Like butter that has been scraped over too much bread. That can't be right. I need a change or something. Be safe, internet stranger. Story 42. This first part isn't exactly dark, but when I was a kid around 9 or so, my cousin, who was 12 at the time, would make out with me. I didn't really know better at that age, but thought I'd be in trouble if I talked about it. For whatever reason, about 6 years went by before I saw him again, and it was never brought up, never mentioned. He was like a totally different person. I sometimes wonder if it even happened. My memory isn't very reliable, and it was so long ago now. I'm in my 20s. Fast forward a little bit more, and I found out he died a couple years ago while cleaning a gun. Accidentally shot himself. My great aunt, who's his grandma and who basically raised him, believes wholeheartedly that it was an accident, but I suspect it wasn't. He grew up around guns and knowing how they work and how to empty them and everything. I find the odds that he accidentally forgot to empty the chamber pretty low. I also know he was struggling with depression and brain damage from a car accident a year prior, but I won't tell my aunt any of this. I think it would break her heart. Edit. About the first part, I don't really know how I feel about it nowadays. It's just a thing that happened. I struggled with some weird, negative emotions about it for a while, but it's so far gone in the past and I live half a country away that it's easier to just not think about it. About the second, I know accidentally shooting yourself is more common than it seems, but I have plenty of reason to believe it was tragic end. I don't really want to break down the paragraphs of details, but he had a pretty massive accident a year prior, leaving him with brain damage, and it messed up a lot of his goals in life. That, plus the depression he dealt with and other factors, I think it was tragic end. I hope it wasn't. Story 43. Everyone in my family is nagging me with the fact that I don't want to date girls anymore and think that I'm strange or gay. But I lost my girlfriend, which I assume I could have a good life with her. She committed tragic end, and I never talk about that with them. I know I can speak with some members of my family, but my parents are different. Edit. Thank you so much, guys, for your kindness, but I don't want to discuss that at the moment with someone. It will bring back some memories that will make me more depressed than before. Story 44. It's been 6 months since my little sister eliminated herself, and everything I see and everyone I talk to reminds me of her. I can't seem to finish my day without crying at least for a few minutes, at most for hours. I feel guilty for living while she is laying under the dirt. I dislike every Sunday and 29th of every month. I pretend like I'm okay and laugh like I'm used to it. Answer. My friend eliminated herself last year. For the first few months I was the same. I cried pretty much every day. Everything reminded me of her. Now, over a year later, I still struggle to go through a week without thinking of her and crying. It does get easier, but it never goes away. I'd recommend finding grief counseling if it's accessible and affordable for you. I haven't done it myself, but I know my friends' parents did, and it seems to have really helped them. Story 45. My uncle owned an old Camaro that collected dust in his garage. When I was around 10, my family and I were in town visiting, and I wrote the word fudge in the dust on the hood of the car. I used my thumb so that the letters were fatter than my normal index finger. A few hours later, my aunt-uncle asked us who did it, and I proved it wasn't me by showing how the person who did it had bigger fingers than me, taking that shoot to my grave. Edit. This blew up. I'm 33 now, and the entire family definitely knows it was me. It's an inside joke now where someone tries to get me to admit to it, and I never will. Story 46. I've been accessory to both my parents' infidelity. At age 5, my mother cheated on my dad while he was deployed, and my brother told me what was happening and that I shouldn't tell anyone. My father slept with his secretary 2 years later for a few years and would even bring me on dates with her, telling my mother we were going to the movies. He took me to her house and had her roommate watch me while they went out or just hung out in her room. They're still married. I don't know if either know the other did the thing, or if they still are doing the thing. Edit. To everyone saying maybe they're in an open or poly relationship, sure, maybe they are, but I doubt it considering their views on most everything. Also, if they were in one, then they should have explained it to us instead of sneaking around and telling us not to tell the other parent. And maybe don't bring your kid on your house dates. So yeah, maybe they were. But if they were, then MO, their behavior goes from shoot for involving their kids in their infidelity to shoot that they involve their kids in a lifestyle without explaining it to them and making their kids think that they were cheating on each other. Story 47. It's like there's a hole inside me and the happiness leaks out of me faster than I can ever hold it. I've felt this way since about 12 years old. Counseling, medication, changing everything in my life. None of it has mattered. Every day I wake up and have to decide, not today. Answer. So, this is also me. I just had a gene site test done for the MTHFR gene related to psychiatric medications. Guess what? Turns out I am a poor metabolizer of SSRIs, meaning my body doesn't process them because I am deficient in amino acid that helps process those medications. I hope I am summarizing correctly here. Now I am starting an antidepressant that my body does metabolize, and I am taking L-methylfolate daily to help metabolize any medications. It has changed everything for me, along with DBT. Recommend checking both out if you haven't yet. Good luck. Story 48. That I didn't graduate from college. I failed one course my senior year, second semester. The ceremony was already set up, so they let everyone walk. I had no diploma in my award. Nobody knows to this day, and it's been 17 years. Failed one course, 3 credits. Was a shame, so I never went back for those 3 credits. So everyone believes I graduated. Edit. Holy shoot, got a lot of responses from this. Currently working, but will get back to everyone as soon as I am able. Edit 2. Still working on getting back to everybody. I can't believe that so many went through the same situation as myself. I thought there may be a handful of people. All of you are great, and I appreciate all the advice. It has quite literally changed my perspective on a couple of things. Thank you all for the information, resources, and above all, your personal experiences. Answer. It's strange. Even if I Google myself, I show up as an alumni. Like WTF, not complaining, but I would have imaging.
The institutions of higher learning would ensure their shoot was right.
Ironically, this hasn't blown up in my face, and I don't put that I graduated on my resume. What I put is, pursued a degree in, splitting hairs, ensure, but not lying. Juice allows for the receipt, through then use of carefully crafted words, to read it as written. Never had a question about the word pursue. The only job that I've had since college that actually verified anything regarding my attendance. They had a hard fucking time cause my student loans defaulted, so acquiring my transcript was near impossible. The university would only verify I attended, and that was it. Haha, I'm such a fudge. Not as though I didn't go through the whole 4 years. I did, and don't even have the fudge paper to show for it. Let the lies continue. Story 49. Funny, lighthearted story from my childhood. My little brother was in the shower. I could hear him singing. I put a coat on backwards and a stocking cap pulled over my face and waited outside the bathroom door. He opened the door, still singing and dancing kinda, and I did the Frankenstein thing. Arms out, moaning, He screamed and fell backwards, knocking the toilet completely over. Water went everywhere. The top of the toilet tank broke, shower curtain ripped down, and him laying on the floor in the middle of all this. I ran back down the hall, coat and hat off, and sauntered back casually. By then, my mother and father and our sisters were there, and everyone is like, what the hell? I've heard him tell this story as proof of the existence of ghosts. To this day, little feller is now a 52-year-old bank manager with 2 kids. He believes in ghosts. I don't feel a bit bad. Story 50. Pest control technician here. You're paying too much for pest control. Whoever you hired, unless it's a fairly small company, they are ripping you off. Unless you have cockroaches or bed bugs, YouTube it. Times are hard enough right now. Edit. Thanks for the awards, guys. I'm getting a lot of pest control questions in my inbox. I doubt I'll have time to answer all of them, but our pest control is a great subreddit that will help you identify pests and offer solutions. Answer. We used to use a small local company. The guy would ring my bell, ask me if there was anything going on, and he would modify accordingly. They got bought by a big company, and the guy told me they doubled his workload and his comp was the same. He lasted 2 months. The next guy pulled up in his truck, sat in front of my house, and left after 20 minutes without doing one thing. We called the company and they sent the same guy back. He did get out of his truck this time, but sprayed for 5 minutes and left again. We fired them and are back with another local guy. He is cheaper and actually works. Story 51. Cutting off my dad was the best decision I've made. I hope it eliminates him inside every day to not know how his only child and only grandchild are doing. I tried for years to have a relationship with him since age 10 until 18. From 10 to 13, he would tell me he wished I would have died when I was sick as a kindergartner because I wouldn't have tattled and ruined his marriage to my mom. I tried multiple times but was unsuccessful. I still tried to have a relationship with him for my mom, to help her financially, and would visit him for months. Had keep me locked in a closet for hours at age 14. From 16 to 18, he thought throwing money around would help me, but I was already working by then and it didn't matter. I still have my daily battle where I ask myself if he's right or not, but I see my kid, and I can't imagine thinking such vile things about them at that age, like my dad did about me. Story 52. I was drinking with my ex in her room when I was 19 years old. She was 23. All of a sudden, I started seeing images of my uncle, who died when I was 13, in my grandmother's bathroom. He was motioning me into the shower and telling me to touch his male body part. I felt like I was 5 years old, seeing that. Luckily, my ex was really great and realized I was having a full-on anxiety attack during that moment. I was holding my knees, rocking back and forth, with my eyes closed. She asked me what was happening, and I was able to dictate what I was seeing. I was probably in the best place for this to have happened. I still don't know what that was all about. I don't know if it was real or something my brain made up in a drunken state. It's almost been 10 years since. Story 53. I've been an addict my entire adult life. I used to drink all day, every day. Before work, at work, and after work. I'd occasionally fall asleep on my lunch break or leaving work and have to make up some illness to friends and fam who were concerned. Today marks 185 days sober. Edit. Holy smokes. You guys made my day. I had no idea this would get so much traction. Thank you all so much for all of the kind words, truly. And if you're reading this and currently struggling, don't give up. Better days are ahead. Story 54. My grandmother has dementia. She's been dying for years now. The woman she was before is entirely gone. My grandfather is still convinced she is there, talks to her, tells us he thinks she's getting better. She's not, and he's deluding himself. She doesn't laugh anymore or remember anyone's names and can barely eat. In my eyes, she is already dead, still alive to everyone else. I wish this husk of her was gone so I could remember her as she actually was, and so that I wouldn't have to watch my grandfather or the rest of my family delude himself. Answer. My grandmother had a stroke when I was around 9, and it ruined her. She could barely talk, had very little short-term memory. She couldn't do anything by herself, and her brain just continued to rot over the next few years. By the time I was 11, she shambled about. She couldn't speak. She couldn't eat without a feeding tube. Eventually, she lost the ability to walk and recognize people or things. She didn't respond to anyone or anything. She was gone. mentally. Her body required around-the-clock care to keep it functioning. Even after multiple heart issues and her body constantly trying to die, some of my family continued to care for her body. They refused to do the right thing and kept reviving her body time and time again, year after year. So much of their lives were partied too hard, taking care of what remained of her body. We even moved to be closer so my mom could help. It sickened me. It was a dark cloud over everyone who knew her, and it served as a constant reminder of how fragile we really are. If she had actually still existed in that body, it'd have helped. It'd have visited her and comforted her the best I could. But even as a child, I knew better. My grandfather and a few of my aunts kept her shell of a body alive until I was in my 20s. For most of my teenage years, her body was a brain-dead corpse. I wished for years that the stroke had eliminated her because it would have been a hell of a lot more merciful. It sounds harsh, but I truly did love my grandmother. I was her favorite as a kid. She was a mean and sometimes cruel woman, but for me, she had a soft spot. I loved spending time with her, throwing bread to the neighborhood birds, her telling me stories of her life. I miss her, but because of what they did to her, it's hard for me to think about her. It haunts me. Story 55. When my grandpa was on his passing bed, he admitted to eliminate fellow Marines in the Vietnam War for torturing and raping young girls. Most of our family doesn't know. Edit. Wow, didn't expect this to blow up, lol. Thank you for all the awards. My grandpa was a pretty cool guy, very calm and mellow. So my mom and I were shocked when he admitted this to us. He was a gunsmith his whole life and was very proud of being a Marine. But the guilt he carried from the war made him believe he was being punished in the end. He died a really painful and traumatic passing that I would never wish on anybody. I hope it lets him rest easier in peace that the majority of you commend what he did. I certainly never held any qualms about it. Answer. My great-grandpa told us the same thing. He said he walked in on his Marine friends raping women and children and blew all their heads off. His words. He never let my parents leave us with anyone but my great-grandma and him because he was so afraid of what piece of shoot perverts were lurking out there. Edit. I also want to thank you for blowing my comment up. It is crazy to think there are multiple people out there in the service with this sick behavior. My great-grandfather was also an amazing man, and he became a pastor after he completed his time in the Marines. He also wanted forgiveness for eliminate those men for what they did, and he ended up passing from bone cancer. But nonetheless, he was an amazing person with a giant heart. Story 56. I quit drinking 2 weeks ago today. I haven't told anyone because I don't want to be labeled as a tipsy or a recovering addict. Story 57. NSFW warning that I am a meth and intimacy addict, and I am a gay. I used to be addicted to hookups and intimacy only, but when pandemic began, social isolation made me try chem intimacy, specifically meth. My friends and family do not know about my sexuality, let alone my struggle with addiction. They see me as a sane and sorted guy, since I am the breadwinner, and I can say I am pretty responsible and reliable. During my addiction period, I was able to secure a new job, promotion, and raise, so really, no one did suspect. Because of my chem intimacy addiction, I had many risk encounters, and I got all sort of STIs. I was on PrEP to protect me from HIV, but I did got gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia, and the worst was anal warts. My anal warts required me to undergo surgery, and I think it was one of the lowest point of my life. I had to go to surgery alone. I did not tell anyone about it, and I had to endure the pre- and post-surgery recovery by myself. I thought after all these I will change, but even after my surgery, I relapsed several times. It actually had made my anal canal tight, which the doctor said would be permanent, so I cannot have anal intimacy now. Part of me regret having the surgery, not knowing it could happen, and other part is thankful that at least I can't have risky hookups anymore. Story 58. I am an intense alcoholic. Some people know I'm an alcoholic, but nobody knows that I am actively drinking about 3 pints of vodka a day. Kinda just hoping my heart stops one night. Answer. Dude, can relate. I was up to 2 handles of Bacardi a day. As far as I knew, no one really knew. Was functional as all hell. Numerous jobs. Good dad. Last year I dug to the root of my problems and issues. I've managed to quit the booze since. July 1, 2021. You can do this if you want to. Fudge need. You have to want it. You fucking matter. Period. Chin up, fellow human. Story 59. I have 2 children who I love with all my heart. My son is my oldest, and he is such a kind soul. A lot of people know that he is from a past relationship, but my daughter, a lot of people think she is my partner's. But I was assaulted 2 months before meeting my partner. So when people see us together and they do the math of our relationship and her age, they laugh and say, "Aw, so sweet. Only ones who knows is our family. Secret has to go to the grave." I mean, how do you tell your only daughter she is an outcome of violation? Answer: I'm so sorry you're in this situation. When I was 25, I found out I was a product of marital violation. As horrifying as it was, and as much as I still struggle with self-loathing from it over a decade later, I'm glad my mother told me, because she made it very clear that she loved me unconditionally regardless, and that nothing that happened to her said anything inherently bad about me. I completely understand the urge to keep it a secret, and truthfully, sometimes I wish Id never found out. But as a daughter to a mother, regardless of what you choose, just love your little girl extra hard. She's yours, and she knows you love her. That's the important thing. Story 60. My tragic end depression isn't gone. I've just accepted that I have to wait to die of natural causes because eliminate myself would scar my family and most people who know me for life. X200B. Edit. I appreciate all the support, and I'm glad for those that find comfort in not being alone and feeling this way. FAQ. No, this isn't passive tragic end ideation as I've attempted twice before and still have active thoughts sometimes. Yes, I am in therapy and have tried medication, exercise, etc. No, I don't want to try microdosing psychoactive substances as I have psychotic depression, meaning I'm prone to hallucinations and such if pressed. Answer. Don't have a will to die, but don't really have a will to live. Been my life for the last couple years, not including more active tragic end. The way I've been coping is by choosing to do as much good as I can then. Volunteering, working towards a helpful career my younger family members can look up to, and supporting some friends. It's always just so weird to explain though. Story 61. My son will never know how much I can't stand his idiot friend from next door. The kid is legitimately stupid and so confident, which makes it worse. Edit. Since I got a lot of upvotes, let me elaborate. He's not a bad kid. He's not malicious or a troll or anything. He just has zero common sense or ability to do the simplest tasks. He constantly talks, and when he does, it's either about absolutely nothing or it's just a bunch of wrong info. And he never leaves me alone unless I'm a bit terse and short with him. My kid is a few years younger than him and has more sense. I feel like I can leave my kid alone in the house for 30 minutes if I absolutely had to. I felt like if I left this kid alone for just 10 minutes, he'd break something due to pure idiocy. Story 62. I love my kids so much, but I dislike being a parent sometimes. I miss my life before kids a lot, and I dislike saying that because I really do have great kids. They're just a lot. Edit. Thank you guys so fudge much. I am in tears right now. I honestly have felt so darn alone for so long about this, because when I try to talk about it with my loved ones or people I'm close to, I just get judged so bad. And I just really appreciate you guys for understanding, relating to me, sharing your experiences and advice and words of encouragement. It means so much. I'm not alone in this, because I really do love my kids so much, and I would do absolutely anything for them. It's just so fudge hard being a parent sometimes. Thank you guys again. Story 63. When I was 10, I was the victim of serial child molester, a teacher, a woman, and no one believed me. This is an important detail as to why I did what I would later do. Several years ago, I saw her while I was shopping. First, I was afraid. Then I realized I was not 10 anymore. I was a 25-year-old adult male. I became angry. I stalked her for weeks, saw her working as a teacher, still, found her on social media, catfished my way into the cougar dating FB group she was in. Learned she had victimized more kids since she had lost me as her pet. She called her victims her teacher pets. After I was sure of everything and had gathered my information, I plastered her neighborhood with her private FB group posts about how much she loves the feeling of power as she pins the little cubs to the desk in her office. The flyers had her face, her address, her phone number, and a bunch of other stuff. This isn't a dark secret, really, because if I get caught, so what? I outed a loud and proud cub hunter. Edit. As I can't reply to all individually, I'm going to put this here. 1. Yes, I did report her. And the FB group, the group no longer exists and hasn't since I did this. 2. I am now in my 30s, and this revenge was 7 years ago. 3. She moved not long after I did this, but I can't say that my actions are the reason. 4. I have not continued to follow her, as my mental health takes priority, and the actions I took back then, for my revenge, actually caused a bit of relapse on my depression. 5. I reported her when I was 10, and again when I found her living in the same town when I was 25. The group chat logs, the Facebook's posts, and all information was turned over to the local police via throwaway email. To my knowledge, nothing was ever done on the matter. 6. I didn't eliminate her or cause her physical harm, because I have a life, and while it isn't all that great, it's a lot better than prison. Story 64. I walked in on my brother being investigated for possession of child-adult content when I was 19, which severely traumatized me. He's now a registered intimacy offender. That was the darkest period of my life. I'm focusing on my mental health now, though. Story 65. My only child, who is 23, has schizophrenia. He was diagnosed a year and a half ago. He is at a point where he is stabilized, but because he has stabilized, he understands the road that he has in front of him, and of course it's devastating for him. I am no longer married to his father, but we co-parent extremely well, and we are rallying around him the best that we can. Having said all of this, if my son were to follow through with his tragic end ideation, my dark secret is I completely understand because he would. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vancher. See you soon.